California has ambitious green energy plans, but now it's facing an energy crisis and walking back on some of its promises. Is California's energy grid doomed? Welcome to America Uncovered. I'm Chris Chappell. California is super environmentally conscious, which is kind of ironic considering how many of its people are made of plastic. But California wants to lead in green energy. First proposed by then-Governor Jerry Brown in 2018, California is charting a path to 100% clean electricity by 2045. And by that point, the electricity might be the only thing clean about California. One major step California has taken toward its goal of clean energy is banning new gas-powered car sales by 2035. The Golden State also approved a record $54 billion spending package, codifying California's goal of carbon neutrality. That's right, $54 billion, because going green means letting go of a lot of green. The spending package includes billions for new electric vehicles and public transit, as well as decarbonizing the electric grid and dealing with wildfires and droughts. The spending package also directs the California Air Resources Board to evaluate and regulate carbon removal technologies and limit oil wells near homes. It now goes to Governor Gavin Newsom to sign by the end of September. This is in addition to the Biden administration's federal level spending to tackle climate change. Many Democrats are praising California for its green energy initiatives, which are more popular than its green energy smoothies. Tastes like chalk-flavored Kermit the Frog bathwater. Washington Governor Jay Inslee said, California's ban on new gas vehicles is a critical milestone in our climate fight, which is why Washington is posed to institute these same requirements by the end of the year. And New York officials say the ban unlocks New York's ability to adopt the same regulation. Essentially, they're saying, you planning to ban something 13 years from now makes us want to possibly do it too. Maybe. California inspired all the procrastinators to make a change. Eventually. The U.S. Secretary of Energy has also praised California as a leading example.
California is in the lead, can show the rest of the nation how it is done.
But as great as California's green energy plan sounds, many are questioning how viable it is in the face of a recent record-setting heat wave.
Cooling stations opening their doors to those in need. Some schools going to minimum day schedules, others keeping students inside during lunch and recess.
Closing the windows, closing the blinds so that, we keep the cool air inside.
Some 2.4 million people in Northern California sweltering in temperatures over 110 degrees. All-time record highs are being shattered across the West. The blazing heat also means an eruption of wildfires, 10 major ones burning across California.
Not to mention the danger of this excessive heat melting plastic. In the days leading up to the heat wave, many feared the state's energy grid would be overwhelmed by the increasing energy demands of air conditioners. This had California scrambling to avoid blackouts. It got to the point where officials declared a grid emergency. Even California New Age spiritualists were afraid because apparently energy crystals don't power air conditioners. And despite media reports saying California narrowly averted an energy crisis, some areas still faced blackouts. Miscommunication led utilities to mistakenly cut power to customers in several California cities. Apparently mistakes were made. Governor Gavin Newsom says this is a wake-up call on climate change.
We, all of us, have been trying to outrun Mother Nature. But it's pretty clear that Mother Nature has outrun us.
Wait, nature runs? I thought nature just called. The takeaway from Newsom and other green energy proponents is that we need to be investing even more on alternatives to fossil fuel. But critics say the blame for California's energy crisis is less on Mother Nature and more on Democrats' green energy plans. I'll explain more after the break. Welcome back. California Governor Gavin Newsom says the state's energy crisis is caused by climate change. But critics blame Democrats' move to make California reliant on solar and wind energy. They call the California energy crisis a man-made energy failure, which is notable since this is the closest Republicans have ever come to saying that climate issues are man-made. According to California Republican leader James Gallagher, the energy crisis was both avoidable and predictable.
We shouldn't have to be in this situation. It is a result of a failed policy that has been advocated by Governor Newsom and the Democrats, which is that we put all of our eggs in one basket.
Independent gubernatorial candidate and nuclear power advocate Michael Schellenberger says the situation could have been avoided.
But it should never have gotten this bad. I mean, we've known about climate change for 30 years. The state's been planning for it. We knew that it was going to bring heat waves. The underlying problem is that we haven't built enough gas-fired power plants. We have taken too many gas and nuclear plants offline. Renewables had become a kind of religious pursuit. People weren't doing the math. They weren't doing the hard energy analyses. I hope there's been a wake-up call now.
So he's saying to battle climate change, they need more gas-fired power plants. That's like saying to battle obesity, we need more Taco Bells. California has put itself into a bind by reducing carbon-fueled energy production without replacing it first. As of 2019, a quarter of its electricity had to be imported from neighboring states. And those states are also reducing carbon-fueled electricity. That just sounds like poor planning to me. Critics point out that California had to beg people to cut back on energy use during the heat wave, including asking electric vehicle owners to limit charging their cars to just once a week. California also had to reverse a lot of policies they've been advocating for. Officials promised to get rid of natural gas-fired generators, but they activated generators to avoid blackouts. They also saved Diablo Canyon, California's last nuclear power plant, in the spending package to counter climate change. The nuclear power plant provides 10% of California's power. It was given 5 more years to operate, despite previous promises to shut it down by 2025. But all this backtracking makes California's energy policy look bad. Some, including those who oppose nuclear energy, say the solution is to build more solar and wind energy. But there are some serious issues with solar and wind. I'll explain more after the break. Welcome back. California's energy grid struggled to deal with the state's recent heat wave, and demand for electricity is going to keep rising in the years to come. Many say the solution is to get more solar and wind energy, but there are a lot of problems with relying on just those two alone. A 2016 U.S. Federal Energy Regulatory Commission investigation found there are some significant risks to solar and wind. And it's not just bad tans and messy hair. To function, power grids require enough supply to match demand. Conventional power plants such as coal, natural gas, and even nuclear plants can adjust their output accordingly. But solar and wind are much more unpredictable. They need the right weather conditions and can't be adjusted as easily. Grid operators have to keep excess reserves running just in case. But this places extra stress on the grid and can lead to brownouts or even blackouts. So, by trying to avoid blackouts, California might cause more blackouts. The only upside to this is without electricity, they can't make growth smoothies. And if an outage happens, solar and wind can't be relied upon to jumpstart grid transmission and help switch generators on. Storing this type of energy is also difficult and expensive, since the technology for batteries to store solar and wind energy is still being developed. In fact, there were some battery hiccups during the recent heat wave. The batteries that help fortify California's electric grid are kicking in at times when they're not really needed, draining the power source before more critical junctures and heightening the chances of blackouts. That's because the grid uses a pricing mechanism to trigger the batteries rather than basing it on pure energy demand levels. So they're spending money and energy needlessly, and when they need to do something, they're useless. That's actually a pretty perfect description of the government in action. But even if California manages to fix the battery issue and get more solar panels and wind turbines, its power grid still has a lot of issues. According to the American Society of Civil Engineers, California is the only state that exempts itself from national standards for minimum designs of overhead electric lines. Who knew you could even do that? California has its own less up-to-date standard. As a result, its overhead electric lines just aren't as good as in other parts of the country. This increases the risk of fires breaking out from power lines, which we saw happen in 2018. The American Society of Civil Engineers gave California's energy system a D-, citing how California suffers from aging equipment and other problems, including the crappy overhead power lines. So California has bigger problems than just a power grid that isn't green enough. And while California is spending $8 billion to decarbonize its grid system and has ambitious carbon emission goals, it's not exactly clear how they're going to do it. Danny Cullen-Ward, Policy Director at Carbon Plan, said, "In my view, they still don't have a realistic plan for implementation, and that's the most important part. The money is there, but what exactly is the plan? Maybe we'll find out by the time the state is supposed to be using 100% green energy by 2045. So what do you think? Leave your comments below. And if you like this show, remember we rely mainly on direct viewer support. You can either support us on patreon.com/AmericaUncovered or on our exclusive social media community on Locals at americauncovered.locals.com. Become a supporter and help us keep making great episodes. Click the link below. Once again, I'm Chris Chappell. Thanks for watching America Uncovered.